Welcome to Serial Killers with Ben Carter. I'm your host, Ben Carter. A haunting detail of the crimes committed by Maury Travis lies in the cold precision of his actions, his meticulous planning and execution. The chessboard was his world, the pieces his victims, each move a calculated strike in his grim game. Maury Travis was not just a serial killer, he was also a mapmaker. His sinister cartography was a dark reflection of his twisted psyche, each marking an eerie testament to his brutal deeds. From his secluded home in Ferguson, Missouri, he charted a path of terror across the St. Louis area, with each spot on his map marking the final resting place of a victim. What sets Travis apart from other murderers is his chilling correspondence with the media. He communicated with a local newspaper, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, taunting law enforcement with maps and letters that hinted at the locations of his victims. It was a morbid game of cat and mouse that he seemed to relish, providing investigators with the very clues they needed to hunt him down, yet always staying one step ahead. His letters were riddled with coded messages and cryptic hints, a testament to his twisted intellect. He relished the power he held, the control over life and death, and even seemed to enjoy the chase. It was as if he thrived on the adrenaline, on the fear and confusion his actions caused. One can't help but draw parallels between his love for chess and his gruesome activities. Each move on the board mirrored his actions in the real world. Each pawn he took down a chilling echo of the lives he snuffed out. His penchant for strategy, for planning several steps ahead, was evident in his criminal activities. The question arises, how did Travis manage to elude capture for so long? Despite his brazen correspondence with the media, and his seemingly arrogant belief that he was always one step ahead, he left few tangible clues at his crime scenes. Travis was meticulous, careful, leaving no fingerprints, no DNA, nothing that could directly link him to his crimes. His victims were women, often those living on society's fringes, overlooked by many, but not by Travis. To him they were targets, pawns in his ghastly game. The bodies were found in various states of decay, some so decomposed that they were nearly unrecognizable. It was a horrific sight, one that would remain etched in the minds of the investigators for years to come. The grim discovery of the bodies, the chilling correspondence with the media, and the disturbing maps all pointed to a single sinister truth. Maury Travis was not just a murderer, he was a predator, a hunter, and his game was far from over. In order to understand the chilling narrative of Maury Travis, it's critical to paint a clear picture of the setting in which this story unfolds. The backdrop to Travis's gruesome spree was the city of St. Louis, Missouri, during the late 1990s and early 2000s. Once a bustling hub of industry and commerce, St. Louis was experiencing a period of decline. Job loss and economic hardships led to an increase in poverty and crime. It was a city in the throes of change, grappling with its new, less glamorous reality. On the outskirts of this metropolis, in a quiet suburb, sat Travis's home, an unassuming single-story house, typical of the neighborhood. The exterior of the house gave no indication of the horrors that laid within. It appeared to be just another home on just another street, its dark secret hidden behind closed doors. The social climate of the time was marked by a certain level of apathy. The city was focused on economic recovery and battling its rising crime rates. The plight of the city's most marginalized citizens was often overlooked, lost in the shuffle of larger issues. It was in this environment that Travis was able to operate undetected for so long. The women Travis targeted were often sex workers or those struggling with addiction, living on the edges of society. They were individuals who had fallen through the cracks, their disappearance or death less likely to cause a stir or prompt an immediate investigation. This was a time before social media, before the widespread use of surveillance cameras. It was easier for people to vanish without a trace, especially those whose society had already deemed less visible. But behind the anonymity and invisibility, these women had stories, families, hopes, and dreams. They were mothers, sisters, daughters, friends. Yet to Travis they were merely objects in his macabre game, disposable pawns to be used and discarded at his whim. The St. Louis of this era was a city struggling to redefine itself, a city trying to rise from its economic downturn. It was also a city that was unknowingly harboring a predator, a man who was using the city's struggles and the anonymity of its most vulnerable citizens to cloak his horrific activities. In the next segment, we delve deeper into Travis's disturbing patterns and methods, and the eventual breakthroughs that led to his capture. The first known victim of Maury Travis was a woman named Alicia Greenwade. Alicia was a 20-year-old woman with a disarming smile and a loving family. She was found on April 1, 2001, in an abandoned building in East St. Louis. Her body bore the horrific signs of torture and abuse, a chilling signature that would become a horrifyingly common thread in the murders to follow. Not long after, on May 15, 2001, the body of Teresa Wilson was discovered. Teresa was a 36-year-old mother of 5. Just like Alicia, Teresa was found in an abandoned building. Her body also bore the marks of torture. As the body count began to rise, it was becoming increasingly clear that St. Louis had a serial killer on its hands. Betty James was the next known victim. A 46-year-old mother, Betty was reported missing by her family in June of 2001. Her body was found several days later, discarded on the side of a quiet rural road. The cause of death was strangulation, and like the previous victims, signs of torture were evident. As the summer of 2001 continued, so did the killings. The bodies of Veronica Jones, Yvonne Cruz, and Brenda Beasley were all discovered in quick succession. Each victim was found in a state of undress, each bore the chilling marks of torture, and each had been strangled to death. The murders were methodical, calculated, and incredibly brutal. Despite the growing body count, there seemed to be no leads, no witnesses, and no signs of the killer. The victims were all women who lived on the fringes of society, their deaths unnoticed by all but their loved ones. As the investigation continued, it was becoming clear that they were dealing with a predator who was not only merciless, but also highly intelligent and careful. He left no trace of his identity at the scenes of his crimes, and his victims were chosen because they were less likely to be missed immediately. This allowed him time to commit his heinous acts and then disappear, leaving behind a trail of tragedy and devastation. While the city was grappling with its economic downturn and rising crime rates, Maury Travis was taking advantage of the chaos and anonymity, stalking and killing women with impunity. His reign of terror would continue for over a year, leaving a trail of victims and a city in fear. The true extent of his crimes would not be realized until much later, and the hunt to bring him to justice would prove even more complex and challenging than anyone could have anticipated. Travis was a meticulous predator, seemingly always one step ahead of the law. He had a method, a pattern that was as disturbing as it was difficult to trace. He preyed on society's most vulnerable, those who were less likely to be immediately missed, which gave him precious time to act and then vanish into the city's underbelly. His knowledge of the city's abandoned buildings and hidden corners allowed him to carry out his crimes and dispose of his victims unseen. As the number of victims climbed, the St. Louis Police Department increased its efforts to catch the perpetrator. The case was assigned to experienced homicide detective, Lieutenant Joe Burgoon, who was well-versed in the city's crime landscape. He led a team of dedicated officers, working tirelessly to find any shred of evidence that might lead them to the killer. The police began to piece together a profile of the killer. They concluded that he was likely a resident of St. Louis, familiar with its streets and its darkest corners. He was probably between 25 and 35 years old, intelligent, organized, and methodical. This profile, while helpful, still left them with a vast pool of potential suspects. The police also turned to the public for help, releasing information about the murders and the killer's modus operandi. The media, in turn, began to cover the story more extensively, dubbing the unknown killer as the Video Strangler, a reference to the brutal method of murder and the chilling video footage that would later be discovered. Frustratingly, despite the increased efforts, the killer remained elusive. The police were dealing with a criminal mind that was not only highly intelligent, but also deeply disturbed. The city was on edge, the fear palpable. Every new day brought with it the dread of another victim, another life snuffed out by this relentless predator. Meanwhile, Travis remained in the shadows, continuing his reign of terror undeterred. He kept a low profile, blending seamlessly into the community. He was an unassuming figure, someone you wouldn't look twice at. This ordinary facade hid a monstrous reality, a man with a chilling bloodlust that seemingly knew no bounds. But as the saying goes, pride comes before a fall. And in his arrogance, Maury Travis would eventually make a mistake, a tiny slip that would crack the case wide open and lead the police right to his doorstep. In the midst of the city's panic, the St. Louis Police Department turned to the FBI for assistance. The Bureau's Behavioral Analysis Unit, renowned for its expertise in tracking down serial killers, was called upon to develop a more refined profile of the perpetrator. They theorized that the killer was not just an intelligent and organized individual, but also a sadistic psychopath with a propensity for domination and control. The FBI's profile suggested that the killer was likely to be a loner, possibly a high-functioning sociopath, able to hide his violent tendencies beneath an unassuming exterior. He was assumed to be someone who held a regular job and maintained a semblance of normalcy, which allowed him to evade the radar of law enforcement. This dual existence was a common trait among serial killers, enabling them to blend into society while feeding their murderous urges in secret. This trait, often referred to as compartmentalization, was a characteristic that the BAU believed was prevalent in Maury Travis. The profile also suggested a fascination with law enforcement or forensics. This was deduced from the killer's ability to avoid leaving any substantial evidence at his crime scenes. He was calculated and meticulous, a trait that pointed towards an understanding of investigative procedures. Even with the refined profile, the police were faced with a daunting task. The city was home to hundreds of thousands of people, and the profile was broad enough to include a vast number of potential suspects. Time was of the essence as the body count continued to rise, and the police were under immense pressure to make a breakthrough. Their break would come, but not in the form they had anticipated. Instead of a lead or a tip-off, it was a piece of correspondence that would lead them to the killer. A letter, mailed to a local newspaper, contained a map marking the location of one of the murders. This chilling communication was the first direct contact from the killer, a bold and brazen move that would ultimately lead to his downfall. In an ironic twist, Maury Travis, who had so meticulously covered his tracks, would be the one to provide the key to his own capture. His need for recognition, a common trait among serial killers, had driven him to reach out directly to the media. It was this error, this lapse in judgment, that would finally bring his reign of terror to an end. His arrogance had indeed brought about his downfall, just as foreseen. The letter, a taunting piece of correspondence, was a critical piece of evidence. It was not just the disturbing content that was of interest to the investigators, it was the way the letter had been sent. The sender had used a computer to print the map, a detail that would prove pivotal. The investigators knew that every internet-connected device leaves a unique digital footprint, and this was a lead they could follow. They approached the task meticulously, enlisting the help of the FBI's best tech experts. These digital detectives began tracing the origins of the map, a painstaking process that would take weeks. But their determination paid off. They eventually traced the map back to an internet search conducted on a computer at a public library. The computer had been used to access a website that allowed users to print maps. The time and date of that search matched the postmark on the envelope containing the letter. This was a significant breakthrough. Investigators now had a location and a time frame. They scoured the library's surveillance footage from that day, revealing a man matching the profile set out by the BAU, Maury Travis. Meanwhile, the forensic team had not been idle. They had managed to recover DNA samples from some of the crime scenes. While no matches were found in the criminal DNA database, the samples gave them a biological profile of the killer. With the surveillance footage and the DNA profile, the investigators were closing in. They set up surveillance on Travis, observing his daily routine, his interactions, his habits. They collected discarded items, such as cigarette butts and coffee cups, hoping to match the DNA to the samples found at the crime scenes. The break they had been waiting for came when a cigarette butt discarded by Travis matched the DNA from the crime scenes. This was the irrefutable evidence they needed. It was a breakthrough moment, the tangible link between the man caught on the library's surveillance footage and the brutal crimes he had committed. Simultaneously, a witness came forward, a woman who had managed to escape from Travis's home. Her testimony was harrowing, her experience mirroring the horrific fate of the other victims. Her account provided chilling details about Travis's cruel and sadistic nature and further corroborated the mounting evidence against him. These breakthroughs, the digital trace, the DNA match, and the eyewitness testimony, painted a damning picture of Maury Travis. The man who had managed to elude capture for so long was finally within the grasp of law enforcement. On June 7, 2002, police descended on Travis's residence, armed with a search warrant. Beyond the nondescript suburban facade lay a chilling scene, a physical manifestation of the horrors described by the escaped victim. The basement, in particular, was a macabre tableau, eerily resembling the backdrop seen in the video footage Travis had sent the Post-Dispatch. The trial of Maury Travis was one of the most anticipated in recent memory, as the public had been gripped, horrified, by the unfolding narrative of his gruesome crimes. The courtroom was a buzz of hushed whispers and gasps as the evidence was laid bare. The atmosphere was so thick with tension, one could almost taste the collective anxiety and anticipation. Prosecutors meticulously presented their case, laying out Travis's digital trail, the incriminating DNA evidence, the chilling video footage, and the devastating testimony from the survivor. The defense made attempts to question the reliability of the DNA evidence, hinting at possible contamination, and argued that the video footage did not definitively prove that Travis was the perpetrator. But the evidence against him was overwhelming. As the trial continued, the public followed it with a morbid fascination. The courtroom was filled to capacity each day, with people lining up for hours in hopes of securing a seat. The local media reported on every detail, every twist and turn in the case. The impact was significant, causing a ripple effect through the community and sparking discussions about public safety, the importance of digital footprints, and the dark underbelly of society that the case had exposed. The trial was a stark reminder of the blend of fear and intrigue that such heinous crimes engender. It was a spectacle, a real-life horror show that fascinated and horrified in equal measure. The public reaction was a mix of relief, shock, and an insatiable curiosity about the man behind such unspeakable acts. When the guilty verdict was announced, it was met with a palpable sense of relief. The reign of terror that had held the community captive had come to an end. But even in the wake of the trial's conclusion, the specter of Maury Travis would continue to cast a long, dark shadow over the city. His crimes were a chilling testament to the depths of human depravity, a grim reminder of the monsters that can lurk behind the most ordinary of facades. To understand Maury Travis, we must venture into the murky depths of his psyche, a task that is as unnerving as it is necessary. The motivations behind such heinous acts can appear incomprehensible to most, with psychologists often turning to past traumas, mental disorders, and personality traits in an attempt to make sense of the senseless. Travis, like many serial killers, exhibited traits aligned with antisocial personality disorder and narcissism. These conditions are characterized by a lack of empathy, a grandiose sense of self-worth, and a disregard for the rights of others. Travis's videos and letters to the police exhibited a chilling pleasure in the power he wielded over his victims, a macabre trophy collection that was as much about control as it was about violence. However, the formation of such a destructive personality doesn't occur in isolation. Childhood trauma is often a common thread in the life stories of serial killers. Travis's mother was reportedly abusive, both physically and emotionally. This early exposure to violence and degradation may have warped his understanding of human connection and value, instilling a twisted sense of power and control. The nature of Travis's victims also hints at a deep-seated misogyny. All of his victims were women, many of them sex workers. This choice of victims, who are often marginalized and overlooked by society, suggests a predatory instinct to exploit vulnerability. It is a disturbing testament to his devaluation of these women's lives, indicative of a pervasive and toxic hatred. As much as we strive to comprehend the motivations behind Travis's actions, it is crucial to remember the inherent limitations of psychological analysis. While it can provide a framework for understanding, it does not excuse or diminish the horror of his crimes, nor does it offer comfort or closure to those affected. The human mind is a complex and enigmatic entity, and even the most detailed analysis may only offer a glimpse into the abyss of a killer's psyche. Unraveling the motivations of a serial killer like Maury Travis is a deeply unsettling task. It brings us face to face with the darkest corners of human nature, a chilling reminder of the evil that can lurk beneath the surface of an ordinary man. By continuing to study these cases, we hope to gain insight that could potentially prevent such horrors in the future. For now, all we can do is remember the victims and ensure their stories are not overshadowed by the shadow of the man who took their lives. The aftermath of Travis's reign of terror was as profound as it was heartbreaking. The wounds inflicted upon the community were deep and long-lasting, with the shockwaves of his gruesome actions reverberating in the lives of countless individuals. The families of the victims had to grapple with the loss of their loved ones, an agonizing process made all the more excruciating by the horrifying details of their deaths. The survivors, too, were left with indelible scars, the memory of their encounters with Travis haunting them long after their physical wounds had healed. The media coverage surrounding the case also had a significant impact. The haunting footage of Travis's basement found its way onto national news broadcasts, a grim reminder of the atrocities committed within those walls. The public's fascination with the case was tinged with dread and disbelief, the sheer brutality of his crimes challenging our collective understanding of humanity and morality. The case brought significant attention to the plight of sex workers and the pervasive violence they often face. It provoked a much-needed conversation about the importance of protecting the rights and safety of these marginalized individuals. Yet amidst the darkness, there were glimmers of resilience and hope. The survivors of Travis's violence, though deeply traumatized, displayed a remarkable strength in the face of adversity. Many became advocates for victims of sexual violence, using their experiences to raise awareness and drive change. Their courage served as a beacon of light in the aftermath of such chilling darkness, a testament to the indomitable spirit of the human will. In the wake of the case, the law enforcement community also underwent significant changes. The mistakes made during the investigation into Travis's crimes served as a wake-up call, prompting a reassessment of strategies and policies. Police forces across the country began to take a more proactive approach towards missing persons cases, especially those involving sex workers and other marginalized individuals. The case served as a sobering reminder of the importance of thoroughly investigating every lead, every clue, no matter how seemingly insignificant. The legacy of Maury Travis is one of horror and pain, but also of resilience and change. His actions shook a community to its core, forever altering the lives of those affected. But in the wake of his terror, there emerged a renewed commitment to justice, a renewed compassion for the marginalized, and a renewed determination to prevent such atrocities from recurring. As we remember the victims of Travis's crimes, we must also remember the lessons learned from their tragic fate and strive to create a safer world in their honor. Yet as we strive to make sense of the senseless, as we grapple with the dichotomous shadow of evil and the resilience of the human spirit, there remain unanswered questions that continue to haunt the narrative of Maury Travis. One of the most significant unresolved details pertains to the actual number of victims. Travis himself claimed to have killed 17 women, but the police only linked him to 12 murders. Several unidentified sets of remains found in the area where Travis hunted for his victims have never been conclusively tied to him. This lingering uncertainty casts a chilling pall over the case, the unknown victims a sorrowful testament to the depths of his depravity. Then there's the matter of how Travis managed to elude capture for so long. Despite a certain degree of sloppiness in his methods, he was able to avoid detection for more than 2 years. This has led some to theorize that there was a level of sophistication to his operations that perhaps has not been fully understood, or even that there were others involved who have yet to be brought to justice. These theories, while speculative, underscore the disconcerting reality of how long he was able to perpetrate his reign of terror. The haunting implications of Travis's case extend beyond the man himself. As a society, we grapple with the concept of evil, of how an ordinary man could commit such horrific acts. We struggle with the idea that such darkness could exist in our midst, hidden behind a mask of normality. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about the human capacity for cruelty and the systemic failures that allow such individuals to exploit the most vulnerable among us. The story of Maury Travis is a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of ordinary lives. It is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable horror. And it is a call to action, a stark warning of the need for vigilance, for justice, and for compassion in a world where such atrocities are all too possible. As we reflect on his horrific legacy, let it serve not just as a record of past atrocities, but as a catalyst for future change. Thanks for listening. This has been Serial Killers with Ben Carter. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like to support the show, subscribe to the Forbidden Knowledge Network on Patreon. Subscribe now.